On today's show, our key takeaways from the Ottawa Senators 2-0 win over New Jersey and a boots-on-the-ground report from Quebec City.
Plus, we react to the Athletics' Sens projection for this season.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's over at FanDuel. Today is Monday, September 29th, and Pilsy, I'd say this game was a lot better than the first for Linus Ullmark.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a confidence booster. Sure, it was the New Jersey Devils B squad at best, and they only generated 14 shots. But hey, 14 saves on 14 shots through 60 minutes. That's a shutout. That's a win for Linus Ullmark. Nice little confidence booster.
As he said after the game, it's always a good night when you don't have to pull the puck out of your net ever, which was good. And I thought he needed that just from the standpoint of he was so hard on himself before the first game and then got lit up. So this was very nice for him, but obviously the team played a lot better, controlled the pace of play. The shots were 11-2 after the first period, and they just kept on the pressure throughout the game. And it wasn't like it was Ottawa's full NHL team. They had 7 regulars out of the lineup, but they had their big dogs in, and they controlled basically this entire game.
Yeah, I mean, the total shots for the night were 32-14 for the Ottawa Senators. So certainly you could say they dominated. Tim Stützle shooting the puck. He had 4 shots and a couple really nice chances, so you love to see that. Our guy, Stephen Halliday, not just a disher. Is he a disher? Yes, but not just a disher. Man, he whipped that thing, and that wasn't even a set pass or play by Timmy. Timmy was trying to get through 2 defensemen in the middle of the ice. Classic. Sometimes he pulls that off, though, so can't blame him for trying. But it gets poked out, and immediately Halliday's there and just blasts that one in for the game winner. So that's a nice little confidence booster for Stephen Halliday as well, who still is in the mix here, hunting for that 4th-line center job.
Yeah, and it was a really good showing for him. He'd been, I'd say, a little quiet, and that's probably not a bad thing for the role that he's trying to make this team as a depth option at center, especially if Lars Eller isn't good to go. Again, we think he will be, but until he plays preseason games, we're going to have to assume that Stephen Halliday has a real good chance of making this team between him and Jan Yannick. And when you look at how that play developed, it was an awesome outlet pass. Yakemchuk passed it out, then Cousins flipped it into the middle of the ice, and that was enough to get Timmy in. Now, it wasn't in all alone like he did in the second period, and Stützle ended up getting a penalty shot, couldn't convert on that play. Devils fans in mid-season form, calling the dive. I mean, when you take out a guy's feet, it's a little hard to stay on them, but I thought Timmy had a nice game and was shooting the puck a little bit better. So I'm happy with his performance. And then Ole Lycksell ends this game with an empty netter, and it was a great defensive play at the offensive blue line by him to strip the puck and shoot it into the empty cage. So another goal for Ole Lycksell. He's got 2 now this preseason, and he's doing all the little things defensively that would give him a good opportunity to make this team. On Friday, we talked about bubble players, and to me, and Arthur Kaliev, I almost call him Arthur Kaliev, he had a couple of good shots early on in the game, and that's what he's going to do, put pucks on net. But I think the all-around game of Ole Lycksell is starting to shine and pull away a little bit for me here against Kaliev.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think Sens fans are starting to notice that, and I would assume the coaching staff is picking up on that as well. I think Lycksell would make a fine addition to the 4th line, because is he going to be that elite shooting goal-scoring threat? Maybe not, but he's going to bring some more overall general offense to at least, maybe you're not scoring as much, but at least you're generating offense and you're keeping the puck in the O-zone when you've got a player that has a more well-rounded game like Lycksell than Kaliev.
And he does have that offensive ability, though. He's a point-per-game guy in the American Hockey League last year with 44 and 43 games. I tweeted out after the game, my prediction is that he's going to play more NHL games this season than Matthew Highmore, the last number 15, did last year, which is 41. Would you go over or under 41 and a half games for Lexell?
I'm hitting the under on that, Ross, because Ole Lexell did not play for Travis Green in Vancouver. That would be like he doesn't seem like that's the only reason I can think of that Matthew Highmore got that many games was playing on the penalty kill. Heck, Matthew Highmore played in a playoff game. Let's remember that. Like Travis Green was a Matthew Highmore guy, and I don't know if he has that same kind of loyalty and reputation attached to Ole Lexell, but I wouldn't hate it if the over hit, but I'll go under, Ross. I say he plays somewhere in the 20s.
You know what my secondary reasoning is? Of course, first is that there's injuries throughout the season, and he's put himself in a good position to be a guy that's at least caught the attention of management and the coaching staff with his performance this preseason. Number two, and he did have a good block, and he is a veteran, and it's his job to lose. But Nick Cousins hasn't necessarily impressed me either.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, but I don't know if Nick Cousins needs to impress to stay on this team. I think at the very least he'll be
eventually he
forward.
Will. Exactly, but eventually he will.
Do you see
he's going to make the team?
Where they send him to Belleville?
No, but to be the 13th forward.
Yeah.
And if you're the 13th forward, well, the guy who's the 12th, he's getting a game played. So that's what my reasoning is there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So wait, let us know in the comments. I already got a $15 bet going with Sens Vader. He said he's going to take that bet. I said, hey, let's do it in honor of the jersey number. He called me a high roller. I appreciate that. I did say prediction, not a guarantee. So I'm not banging the table here like I was with Claude Giroux setting 1,000 points a couple of years ago. He got that. I'm not putting a levy lock on it, but I am saying that I believe Ole Lexell will play over half the games this season. A part of me wants to get into the big dogs and Stützle and Tkachuk. I thought they both played well, but this is warm-up games for them. So I'm not really too argumentative about how they're playing. You mentioned Timmy shots on goal. That's a good sign. Zetterlund had 3 shots on goal. He got robbed in the first period. I thought that could have easily been a goal. Nice shot right in front of the net that couldn't find its way in. So instead, I'll go to one of the storylines that every Senators fan is following, and that's Carter Yakemchuk, who turned 20 years old, by the way, today. So happy birthday to Carter Yakemchuk. Travis Green called it his best day of training camp overall. But then when was asked about his defensive game, said it was fine. So to me, that's a coach that still needs to be sold on the idea that this kid, who's 20 years old, could start the season with the Ottawa Senators.
But let's be honest, Ross, Carter Yakemchuk was not drafted to be a defensive specialist. So if his defensive game is fine, okay, decent, any one of those words you want to use, that's probably fine, okay, and decent, because Carter Yakemchuk is going to make his impression by his offensive play, the way he's able to carry the puck up the ice. Can he keep the puck alive in the O zone? And I'd say, based on everything we saw in that game, it's fair to say he was able to do that. And I think if Carter Yakemchuk is going to play in the NHL this year, which I do think he is going to, we'll have to set an over-under for that, Ross. That'll be interesting. You need to get him with a defensive partner. I know he had his best game alongside Thomas Chabot. I don't like the idea of those two as a partner. I think either you got to put Yak beside Sanderson, someone that can mop up any mistakes that a rookie defenseman can make. Sandy's going to be back there. Don't worry about it. Or you put him in a little bit more of a shelter protected role alongside Tyler Clevin on a third pair. I don't think being beside Thomas Chabot and playing that type of minutes, second pair minutes, is the right option. If that's the case, I think it'd be more beneficial to have him in Belleville. And I'm still on the case. I know Sens fans hate to hear it, and I know it's me being patient and lame, and it's not the fun take, but I still do think it would be the best case scenario for Carter Yakemchuk to play majority of his games in Belleville, top minutes, top power play, learn how to be physical up against men, and work on that fine defensive game in a lesser stakes environment.
I think you're kind of preaching what's going through Travis Green's mind right now, because the one spot that's available with the injury to Nick Jensen is beside Thomas Chabot, and I don't see him changing up all the pairs between there.
I think he only needs to change one pair, and that would be Chabot Zub, and then Because Sandy has proven he can play with anybody. I mean, he spent a lot of time playing with Hamonic. Now, at the start of the season, that didn't go well, but I would put more of that blame on Hamonic than on Sanderson. And, you know, you're going to have these slumps as a young defenseman. But at this point, I'm confident that if he had to play big minutes with Sanderson, he could do it. Or I do like the idea of Glebe and Yakemchuk, but then you're getting your top prospect playing only 12, 13 minutes a night. But that's a nice little exposure. Like, that's not pushing them in the pool. It's getting them started in the shallow end, which sometimes is what you need.
I just heard the word fine, and anybody in a relationship that hears the word fine, that does not mean they're fine. That means that there's something that needs to be tweaked a little bit. So we'll see how it continues for Carter Yakemchuk. There's one more game in Quebec City tomorrow night against the Montreal Canadiens. This game will be on TSN. I know there's a lot of confusion and frustration, ourselves included, that it seemed like it was on a subscription-only French channel, and I was scrambling. I got like 1,000 channels, not to brag, but I didn't have that one. I was like, what the heck's going on? Ian comes through, Senators come through, they stream the game. However, there was no audio, and I still saw some complaints about that. Look, half the time when the games are on Sportsnet, you wish there was no audio. So would have been nice to get some noise from the crowd, some ambient noise, sure. But you know what? The video is the most important thing. That way we could watch, we could analyze, we can make our own impressions about what was going on the ice. So the video is there, and I was happy about that. We're also extremely happy to have a boots on the ground report coming up on the other side. Our good friend Eric will be on. Beautiful background. This one's worth watching on YouTube. And we'll wrap up the show talking about the Athletics, projections for the Ottawa Senators, best case, worst case scenario, and which players we think they're way too low on. That's coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Look, most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth. Whether you're talking about 401k, retirement savings, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. Don't do that. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. We're all busy these days. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is there for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I love Monarch Money. It helped me maximize my investments, increase my savings rate, and easily review my finances with my partner or financial advisor, keeping a clear view of your financial health week to week and long term. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks anymore. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL.
All right, we now head to the streets of old Quebec City, La Ville de Quebec, where we find Eric. It's me, Eric, on Twitter. What's going on? Welcome back to the show.
Hey, guys, feeling good. It's a great, wonderful city here, and it's a great place to watch Sens hockey, I'll tell you that.
How many Sens jerseys did you see in and around the arena yesterday?
I want to say about 1,000, but that's just from my viewpoint and what I saw. But like any concession stand, everywhere you had people in Sens jerseys, and it's just like, even at dinner time, I'm sitting down and this guy's walking by, and I'm like, I know this guy, and I look up, I'm like, it's Travis Green.
Nice.
But, he looks like he's just I'm having my night out. The boys are doing their thing. I'm the coach. I'm doing my thing by myself. That way I'm not supervising the team. And he didn't want to, it didn't look like he wanted to interact with anyone. So I just gave him the good luck, Travis. Looks at me, nods his head. Thanks, man. Keeps walking. And that was I didn't want to be like, hey, come here, give me a picture with you and stuff, and be all like a weirdo, But,
no, you should have said, hey, I got lineup on my napkin. You want it?
Yeah. So I've been tinkering with a couple of things. You don't need to take my advice, Greener, but have you tried Carter Yakemchuk as right wing next to Timmy and Brady.
Yeah.
He'd probably like spit in my face or something and walk. No, he's too nice for that. But
I don't know if you'd get a whole lot from Travis Green in the wild. He doesn't give a lot in press conferences, so that you probably got the full extent of what he was willing to give up to you there, Eric.
well, being Army, I speak grunt, right? So I think maybe he gave me a couple of grunts. And was like, I'm like, you have a nice day too, sir.
I know exactly what that
kept
means.
walking, you know. Old Tim Allen.
So the whole Sens Quebec City thing has certainly taken a different turn when Sparty decided to wear a split jersey. And we all remember how that went. So as a Sens fan that's got to experience Sens hockey in Quebec City, what does it make you feel a certain way that the Sens played there? Like, is the whole thing overblown, or what is the general vibe around that relationship?
Well, I feel that they so when the Nordiques had a team, I feel like their biggest rivalry was the Habs, right?
Of course.
So there's a lot of, I guess, hatred passed down for that team. So like, not one bad word. Like I was wearing Sens gear. I mean, I was wearing a Giroux jersey too, of course, the Francophone connection. But I'm wearing a Sens jacket today. It's just beautiful out right now. But all smiles and stuff. No one's like talked any smack, and it's just you could tell we can win this city. You know, keep bringing more like elite French guys in. You know, like some Shabbats and stuff. And I feel like we could really grow the fan base here. Just none of this dual jersey thing, you know, no blasphemy, but do it the right way. And I really think there's a chance to expand here.
So you're saying that the Quebec City fan base is hinging on Luca Beckman to be the guy?
Exactly. There was, you know how many? There was 1,000 Sens jerseys I saw, and there was about 999 Beckman jerseys already. So I think they're ready to go. But you can tell this place deserve another NHL team.
Yeah.
Like it's. You walk around, there's hockey Christmas ornaments, you know, it feels hockey all the time everywhere. And it's just such great people, great food, great vibes. I mean, they deserve an NHL team again.
And walking down Rue Saint Jean last weekend, like they've got these little stores that have sports memorabilia, whether it's football jerseys, hockey, all that. And they still, like the front in the window are all Nordiques jerseys. They're not playing other teams. Although there was one Brady Tkachuk jersey in the front of the store window. I didn't know if that was placed with the Senators coming the next week. Let's get ready for the game. I didn't see any Devils jerseys, maybe a couple of Habs. But that said, like they're still ride or die with the Nordiques. But in the meantime, when they're watching hockey, hopefully they come by, check out the CTC too. It's not too hard to get to, as you made the trip down to Quebec City for that. Now, when you're in the arena yesterday, and we all got to watch the game, thankfully the Sens were able to get that stream going, but there was no volume. So I want to know what the pop was for Thomas Chabot when he was introduced in the starting lineup and then throughout the game.
So you could kind of tell. So first off, with the arena, I love the CTC, but we thought, so when I got my tickets, they were, I'm like, 200 levels, sick. But 200 levels there are like, I'm 3 rows from the top. But even being there, it was better. Like I literally will say not a bad seat in the house, because it felt like I was in the 200s at the CTC. Like it's kind of built a bit differently. So with that being said, there's, I guess where the 100, 200s would be in the CTC was probably all Thomas Chabot's family and friends. Like those were all packed. So say 18 to 20,000 capacity, 12,000 fans were there. You could tell which ones were Thomas Chabot supporters, because they introduced him for the lineup, and it's just like this huge roar from that little middle section, and everyone else is like, yeah, Chabby, and Emily's wearing a Chabby jersey too, you know, so we had to represent.
Love that. I mean, I've heard that it's his hometown. I don't know if anyone was made aware of it, but we've got little inklings that was the case.
No secret.
Now, final question for me, Eric. This has been awesome getting to see you on the streets in Quebec City. Is
great background, by the way.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I painted this, by the way.
What were some takeaways from the game? Like, you got to see Carter Yakemchuk live wearing a Sens jersey. He had a couple nice rushes with the puck. You got to see a bunch of the top players for the Sens. Tim Stützle finally at least shooting the puck. No goals, but at least shooting it. What were some of your major takeaways?
So I was really focused on, I mean, obviously went to Vegas. I feel like I'm all in on Yakemchuk. You know, like we saw him get drafted. You know, we all chose him to get drafted for the Sens because we all have big brains. Don't roll the footage.
All right, heading to the Sphere. Final prediction at 7.
The Ottawa Senators will select with the 7th overall pick in the 2024 NHL entry-level draft, Zane Parekh.
Oh, there it is. Who do we got?
The Ottawa Senators in the 7th overall pick will take Brandon Piller.
Just gonna say that's a reach. That's a reach.
Who do you got?
I'm taking Sam Dickinson.
And you?
Boyam, let's go! Go Sens, go! Here we go.
I feel like there was moments where when he gets the puck in the offensive zone, like even so being there in person, like the eye test with just how hard he's snapping the puck around, like his passes they're tape to tape, but you can tell you need to be a good player to take those passes. So maybe in the WHL, you're not as talented enough like a Giroux to be able to, you can't give a good player a bad pass. So I find this is really going to help him because he can do those passes. Like that one to Timmy when Timmy was down by the net and like Yakemchuk's at the blue line and just snaps it through. Like, man, you could hear that on the tape. Like you just hear that sound like that was a rocket pass. He can, as his confidence grows, I know he's going to take a lot of more of those shots. Although he's so deceptive and such a good passer, I get it. You're like, I want to pass to Timmy or Brady, who's on. When it comes defensively, I was actively trying to criticize, to be like, oh, here's a rush on him. And I'm like, okay, what do you got? And, I wasn't walking away going, like there's obviously he needs to get used to the pace. And I think he's really coming around to that pace. But it didn't make me nervous. I'm like, this guy's ready for the NHL. Give him more reps, maybe if it's that 9 game, but if someone gets injured, God forbid that doesn't happen, I'd love to see some Yakemchuk,
He's fun.
When we get that when we see Timmy, but like, I love that feeling when you have an electric player and every time he gets it, I was like, oh, he's going to do something. And he either does a little dangle or just like body position. Like this is why we chose him as our number 1 pick. Like he's pretty good.
And we haven't even seen the physicality that kind of comes in the package that you hear scouts talk about. And in the WHL, like he throws some big hits and we haven't really seen that yet. It feels like kind of like with Tyler Clevin, different players, obviously. But when it comes to physicality, it's almost like, hey, let me get my feet wet and do what got me here first in terms of the skating and defending for Clevin and with the offensive ability for Yakemchuk. And then once they do, look out because you got to keep your head up when those guys are out there. I thought you made a great point as well about being better with better players. And we'll see how that continues for Yakemchuk. Final question for me, Eric. We appreciate the heck out of you for doing this. True friend of the show.
Absolutely, guys.
What was the power ranking for the 13th forward? Arthur Kaliev, Ole Lycksell. Who stood out more to you there?
Our Russian gambler, he's got that shot, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. That was just a joke. But he's got the shot. But I feel like Ole Lycksell is he's not going to wow you, but you feel safe. And he's great. I think he has a higher IQ because he's got some no quit in his compete, although he's not this bulldog. But he's always finding himself kind of in the right places. And I feel like if you're going to throw someone in, obviously situational, depending on what's going to complement that 4th line, maybe sometimes you can roll a slower, bigger line with Lars Eller and Matteo if he's not on that shutdown 3rd line with a Kaliev, and then you got some big bodies, you're a bit slower, but we've seen that work with Washington where they've put 3 behemoths on a line that are a bit slower but have good puck control and all situational. But if I had to choose one, it's going to be Lycksell.
Okay, yeah, that's to me, he moves up to number 1 after this game. Another good performance. I know it was an empty netter, but he still stripped the puck coming out of the own zone. The best defense is offense, and in this case, the defense turned into offense immediately. So we like that. We also love having boots on the ground reports. Postcast season is coming. This gave me a bit of postcast vibes, and that just gets me fired up. Yeah. Sens hockey coming in less than 2 weeks, and we know you're going to be with it every step of the way. Eric, everyone could follow you on Twitter. It's me, Eric. We appreciate you, brother. Bon voyage back to the nation's capital, and thanks for doing this.
Thanks so much, guys. It's always a pleasure to be on the show.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. If you haven't joined, good news. Right now is a great time to join because new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. Ross loves it. You should too, because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or keeping an eye on your fantasy players, hoping that they put up big numbers. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Thursdays, Sundays, and Monday Night Football tonight with 2 different games on the slate. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, Pillsy, I am fired up about this article. The Athletic, they're doing their season previews for every single team, and they're counting down, or should I say up, the standings, and they got the Ottawa Senators finishing 13th in the National Hockey League in projected points. That's slightly ahead of the reigning Eastern Conference champion, Washington Capitals. It is also ahead of the Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres, the Detroit Red Wings, the Boston Bruins in the Atlantic Division, which would, math guy, put them in 4th place, right where they ended off last season as well, behind in no particular order. Of course, this just came out, so it's behind some order of Florida, Tampa, and Toronto. No surprise there. What did surprise me, though, was their lack of respect for the Ottawa Senators forward core behind the top 2 in Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. What was your major impression from this article? Which is, by the way, we can get mad at lists. We can get mad at different parts of it. There's a lot of information, and it's definitely worth the read.
Yeah, this is a cool series that The Athletic is doing using Dom's models. So I didn't go through exactly how the model works. That's a little too advanced for my brain. But 13th is right around where I was hoping and expecting the Sens to finish. I was thinking somewhere between 12 and 16 playoff team. So 13 is a nice spot to be in. The major things I took away from this is really the lack of expectations that they had for Fabian Zetterlund and Dylan Cousins. In fact, they were mostly negative about Dylan Cousins. And I think, like, you got to, again, a lot of this is models and statistics and analytics and math, not math guys here. I think a big part of it was taking away the fact that Dylan Cousins improved dramatically when he left Buffalo and came to Ottawa. And they do put a little sentence in there like that, but I just think it needs to be understood that the last 2 seasons in Buffalo, I don't expect that to be at all the Dylan Cousins we're going to see. I think it's going to be much closer to when he hit 60 points at over 30 goals, over 30 assists. I think that's more realistic. And then Fabian Zetterlund, I know he did not impress when he came to Ottawa as far as points go, but we've been talking about it, Ross. This guy is hungry for shots. He's going to be put in a position to succeed. I'm a big Fabian Zetterlund guy. I love the contract they extended him to, and I think those 2 players are really going to help elevate the entire forward group this season.
The one thing about Dylan Cousins where it's like, yeah, fair to say that only 8 of his 16 points came at even strength. There was a lot of power play points. Now, you need to score goals, but Ottawa had a big issue scoring 5-on-5 last season. Yep. And that, to me, is where Dylan Cousins can improve, and we hope he does. Another thing is not only was he an improvement versus an often injured Josh Norris, who, by the way, is having a great preseason. And we're not going to be those guys who, if Norris plays well, we're going to be like, oh, man, it's this or it's that. We want to see Josh Norris do well. He's an awesome guy, friend of the show. But with all that said, he unlocked something in Drake Batherson down the stretch. And that line with him and David Perron on either side was the Senators' best line after the trade for the majority of the regular season. So that, to me, adds value, and I don't know if that's reflected in this graphic enough, is the fact that Drake Batherson played his best hockey of the season in March when this trade was made. So we're curious to see that, because they do mention about Drake Batherson. Yeah, the underlying numbers took a big step forward last year, but is he good enough to be the Senators' 3rd best forward? I would argue yes, But I get the hesitation based on the previous couple of years where defensively it wasn't always the prettiest.
Yeah, and that's fair. But if Batherson's able to get where you expect him to get, Ross, closer to that point per game range, I mean, he's been increasing his point totals ever so slightly, but it's an increased amount the last 3 seasons. So you hope that uptick continues. And then I really did like how they emphasized how much of a wild card and sneaky pickup the Jordan Spence acquisition was, because that third pair, it could get a really nice boost. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the way Tyler Clevin and Nicholas Matsipalo played, but they're not generating any offense like that with those two guys, which was not what was expected of them. But get Jordan Spence in the mix, and I think you could at least see some offensive control. Maybe not the points that you want, but at least it's not just, hey, let's hold our own in the defensive zone and chip off the glass and change, kind of like what Tyler Clevin and Nicholas Matsipalo were expected to do. So that is going to be interesting to see how much Jordan Spence affects this.
Yeah, and it's not just offense. Yeah, it's not just the offense, like them getting points in the offensive zone, but the Senators play a speed-based game through the neutral zone. That's what they're trying to do: be fast, forecheck hard, and the first step to that is getting the puck from the defenseman into the forward's hands with speed. And that, to me, is a huge asset that Jordan Spence has. Is he's going to be able to get the puck out quick or on the tape and create speed.
Or also, Ross, that is important, but that can't just be your be-all, end-all. You can't be a one-trick pony being like, defenseman, we got to get it to our forwards right away. It makes it really easy for the opposition just to crowd the line at the blue line and wait for that pass to hit the forward, and then you immediately hit him aggressively. You need to have the option for the defenseman carrying the puck up the ice. Look, scan. All right, nobody's open, I'll do it myself. That needs to be an option. Otherwise, it's very easy and predictable to stop that neutral zone attack.
The other thing analytics can't track is everything David Perron went through last year. I don't think we're going to see the same player even close to what we saw to the start of last season. He's settled in. Everything's good with the home life. All injuries, we like to think, are behind him. And I'm expecting a step forward from him. But again, they say in this article, like, they need steps forward offensively from Dylan Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund. Those are the two guys they're focused on. And those are the two guys that had a big change in the middle of last season and now had a full off season to prepare and know what they're coming into now. So we agree with that. Those two guys need to be 50 to 60 point players, in my opinion, for the Ottawa Senators to be that next level team. If they're 40 to 50 point players, I think the Sens could finish in a similar spot that they finished last year. But if you're looking for best case scenario, those guys have to produce offense. There's no way around that, especially if you're going to pigeonhole Shane Pinto into a checking line, where I still think he can produce offense from, but not to the same extent that I believe is there for Shane Pinto. So I'm curious to see Pinto, by the way, the one player in the quote unquote bottom 6 that the Athletic said is highly ranked based on other players in that position. They say that the high end for the Ottawa Senators is 106 points, which would be great. And the worst case is 81. So that's a 25-point range, Pillsy, that they see the Ottawa Senators finishing in. The analytics would show that the Ottawa Senators' most percentage to get would be 95 points. They had 96 last season. And then they've got an 8% chance to win the division, a 12% chance to finish second, and a 15% chance to finish third in the division. Math guy, ooh, that's tough. 20, 35. Nice. 35% chance to finish in the top 3 in the division. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I think, Ross, really, you're hoping to keep that top wild card spot, and you're hoping to compete for that third spot in the Atlantic, similar like last season. Like, let's not forget, the Ottawa Senators finished 1 point behind the Florida Panthers in the regular season. So you get one more win, you jump from wild card to third in the Atlantic. So that's very possible. Now, their prediction for the Ottawa Senators was 94.2 points. Ross, over under on that point projection. Over. Yeah, I said we did an Atlantic preview show with some other Locked On NHL hosts.
Coming soon.
Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers, Locked On Leafs, and myself coming soon this week. And I predicted the Ottawa Senators would finish with 97 points. So 1 point more than last year. It's an improvement, but I don't think they can get to triple digits. I think that's more difficult than people might think. And I think they are going to improve on last year. Even if it's 1 point, I'll take that improvement, because if they're able to make the playoffs, Ross, I don't really care where they finish. Like in your mind, does finishing third in the Atlantic give a major advantage over finishing in the top wildcard spot?
No, you'd have to get to number 2 to get home ice. That would be the only difference.
And I don't see a world where they finish first or second in the Atlantic.
Dude, Micah, he does great work at Hockey Viz. He was saying on his analytics, so more numbers, it's at Ineffective Math. Senators finished second in the Atlantic. Toronto and Montreal both slightly missed the playoffs. I mean, that's dreaming.
The playoffs?
That's dreaming best case scenario if you're an Ottawa Senators fan. Our good friend Chicken Run, he posted that for us. But yeah, that's where his analytics are showing. So the hope is there that the Senators could finish top 3 in the division, and not top 3, but top 2. So obviously getting ahead of ourselves. To me, a very successful season would be 100 points. Let the chips fall where they may. But
what's your actual prediction? Yeah,
I'll say 98. I'll say 98. I'll say a 2-point improvement from last season. Our friends over at FanDuel have the Ottawa Senators point over under at 95.5. So 95, you can either bet over or under. Over is paying minus 104. So I will be jumping on that. That is the quote unquote underdog. It's minus 118 for the under of 95.5 points. So we'll find more and more reasons for optimism, I believe, after the first early portion of the schedule. Senators obviously have those 2 tough games right off the bat, divisional matchups on the road at Tampa, at Florida. And then you come back, and that second week of the season, man, you got the Predators for your home opener, at Buffalo, home to Seattle, home to the New York Islanders. There's only so big of a week you can have in October. But coming off, like, let's say they fall 0-2, all of a sudden that second week, that's a winnable week right off the bat.
Big time. Yeah, there's no reason why the Ottawa Senators can't win 3 of 4 of those games in the second week, in my opinion, especially being the fact that they've got 3 home games there. Now, Buffalo, we can't have Buffalo win every single game against the Sens this year. So just be so nice just to get that storyline, get that monkey off your back, and beat the Sabres in the first game in Buffalo. Just figure that out right away. That'd be great.
Yeah, and the Ottawa Senators then host the Edmonton Oilers, and that hasn't gone well in Ottawa for a long time.
Yeah, oh boy.
Yeah, I heard Joey Decord on our good friend Johnny Lazarus' podcast. They asked him what player has his number, and he's like, I'm pretty sure Leon Draisaitl scored on me 100 times during the COVID season.
Yeah, it was insane how much the Oilers dominated the Sens that year.
Yeah, he's like, we went to Edmonton. I think we lost like 17-0 on aggregate.
They broke records. I remember they broke like NHL season records for most points up against a single team or whatever. Now, obviously, that's different because the Canadian division, but yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah. Hey, we're just focused on Tampa. Night 1 of the season at Tampa. Going to be an awesome way to start the season. Like, you're going in, you're going to be underdogs the first 2 games. Go out and split it. Go get the split in Florida. Hey, to use a playoff term, obviously 2 different teams, different situations, but I'm so excited for the regular season to get going. And we're getting close, man. We're a week and a half away from that. So we'll see. After tomorrow, I'd expect more cuts. Senators still with 32 players at camp, and we'll see how much they keep around the edges after that. We're still waiting for Lars Eller to play his first preseason game, Tyler Kleven to get back in the preseason, Drake Batherson, we're hoping he's ready for day 1 of the regular season. And I think I'm missing 1 injured player, of course, Nick Jensen with the hip. We'll see if he's able to continue his progress to the point where he can get back in the lineup. But we got a game day preview tomorrow. Senators and Habs live from Quebec City. We hope you enjoyed our chat with Eric, who was awesome with us. He's a great follow on Twitter as well. It's me, Eric Pilsy. Any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is the Belleville Senators announced their 27-player roster to open up their training camp. So go check out their website. They posted all the players that will be joining them here. And I keep saying it, Belleville needs to have a big year. I know don't really care too much about how the Belleville Senators do, but it is important for the organization as a whole to have a successful AHL team, especially when you're not exactly a team with the cupboards stacked with prospects. So you got to find a way to develop the guys you do have and make the most of it.
And the Senators Belleville farm team will play 2 preseason games Friday, October 3rd and Sunday, October 5th. Both games are at CAA Arena. We'll be back tomorrow to chat about the Senators against the Montreal Canadiens, the first of 2 preseason games head-to-head. They'll also play this upcoming Saturday in Montreal. That will be the preseason finale. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Hayden Hodgson and Zach McEwen both will be in the lineup tomorrow night. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. Please leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. Goes a long way to helping the show grow. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.